It's been dismissed as a talkfest which will achieve very little, but many of its participants aren't discouraged. More than 100 lobbyists and academics will converge on Canberra tomorrow for the government's tax forum. Those taking part say that no matter what the outcome, the opportunity to talk about tax reform is never wasted. Here's Philip Lasker.
This week's tax summit has brought the inevitable comparisons with the Hawke government's 1985 tax summit, which delivered a capital gains tax and fringe benefits tax. Then Treasurer Paul Keating also proposed a broad-based consumption tax.
What we need to do is to make sure that we've got a document that actually caters for the tax system for the next 10 years, not too dissimilar to, I guess, during the Hawke-Keating era.
Here we're talking much more openly. We're not coming with any particular package that government is looking to sign off on. It's allowing us to have a dialogue between each other and with government really about where the Henry Review went. It's in a way the kind of dialogue we should have had before the Henry Review was released so that they could fine-tune some of those recommendations.
It's the dialogue the government promised independents Tony Windsor and Rob Oakeshott in return for their support. And while the government initially tried to rule out discussion of the big controversial issues like the resources tax and GST, the reality will be something quite different.
If we're going to talk about state taxes, and we have a whole session on that, surprise, surprise, we will probably find goods and services tax being raised as an alternative to those state taxes we want to get rid of.
Discussion is expected to include calls for a simpler and flatter income tax system, free of tax rebates, a higher tax-free threshold of $25,000, a lower company tax rate, broadening the GST and raising its rate, state tax reform and broadening the mining tax.
I'm not surprised we're going to revisit that. I mean, we've got the Greens saying, now what about gold? Well, not far behind that's going to be what about uranium and what about these other sectors that are making above normal profits? And that's a reasonable dialogue to have.
But others are concerned about those small and medium-sized businesses, mostly outside the mining sector. HLB Man Judd tax partner and fellow of Monash University's Tax Law and Policy Research Institute, Mark Pizzicalla, says SMEs are a diverse group, some mature, others in the start-up phase. He says start-ups won't benefit from proposals like loss carryback, allowing businesses to claim losses against a previous year's profit.
You need to fully understand and appreciate where that business lies in terms of its business life cycle and provide tax concessions accordingly.
But what most people want is a blueprint for an apolitical, independent tax reform process.
You need a lot of really good foundation research to be undertaken at arm's length from government, from various groups, that's in the public interest to better ready the community for understanding tax.
What we don't want to see is for the process to be stifled by either a change of government or the government not following through on the direction it takes.
Removing the politics from tax reform. Now there's a novel idea.